Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Dog Talk. This is episode 77A.
I'm Cam and this is Julie.
Yes.
This week's Torah portion begins in Genesis 44:18 and it goes to 47:17. Like last week, we talked about there's so many hidden and really
treasures.
Yeah, clear patterns and treasures and so much there. And so I thought that we would just look at a few things that we didn't necessarily touch on last year. One thing, let's start with, is the age of Jacob. So if you remember in Genesis 47:9, it's where Pharaoh meets Jacob. And he basically is like, oh my gosh, how old are you? I mean, just straight up, wow.
Wow.
And Jacob's like, well, I'm only 130. But I'm not half as old as my forefathers. I mean, they were much older than me. Okay, maybe not half, but they were much older. And Pharaoh is somewhat, just taken back. So much that he allows Jacob, the Canaanite, the Hebrew, to bless him. It's said from the sages that age was not something that the Egyptians were familiar with. They didn't live long like that, which I find so interesting because if you think about it, the Egyptians had all the types of magic and all the healing stuff they used.
You would think they would be living longer.
Well, think about Moses. When Moses went, that was one of the things. When Moses went over into becoming the Redeemer for Israel, he didn't rely on any of the things he learned in Egypt.
Right.
Any of the healing things, I want to say magic because that's what we would call it now. That's not what they were calling it, but their medicine of the day.
Right.
Their medicine.
Their methods.
Yes,
the way of doing things.
Moses didn't use it. And think about this. They did not have the age that they saw in Jacob with all their modern technology.
Right.
Yet here's a man that the Lord has preserved for 130 years to make sure that he was going to see his son who was alive. Right? So I think it's really cool that we have Pharaoh taken back by this. Another thing we see about the age is we know that he is 130 years old. Mm-hmm. So let's do some math.
Okay.
If we know...
I like math.
Yeah. You don't like math?
No.
All right. This is simple math. This is like 1
good.
plus 2 is... All right.
All right, good.
So we're going to do some subtraction. If we have 130 years and we subtract, we're going to say 39 to 40. So let's keep it even. Let's do 40.
Okay.
All right. That leaves us with
90. Yeah.
90. This would mean that Jacob was around 90 years old at the birth of Joseph. Now remember, when Jacob was with Laban, right, after Joseph was born, we've got 6 to 7 years that he stayed working up there before they left.
Okay.
Then they come down here, and they're here roughly about 2 years, year and a half to 2 years in Shechem.
Okay.
So this adds anywhere between 8 to 10 years, all right? Which would mean that Benjamin was born of Jacob between the years of 98 and 100 years old. Wow. So wouldn't it be interesting if at 99 he ends up with the son being, in Rachel's tummy, which is the same that Isaac was in Sarah's tummy.
Yeah, okay.
At 99.
At 99.
Birthed at 100. Mm-hmm. I just think that's really interesting. Don't know, but we do know it's somewhere in the range of almost to 100 years old is when Benjamin's being born. I bring this up about Benjamin because this week we see I think there's a lot of richness in who Benjamin is and what he's representing that I think we are not even really able to understand because it hasn't come yet.
Right, we look over it.
Yes, I think that when the time comes, we'll look back and go, oh, yes,
Benjamin.
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
Lots of patterns.
Yeah, there's these hints. I mean, there is the hint of understanding that Benjamin is the tribe in which Saul comes from, the very first king. Mm-hmm. But it's really going to be from Judah.
Right.
Yet we have here this week where Benjamin, the youngest, Judah is standing in the place of Benjamin. There's this relationship.
Right.
He loves him. He doesn't, he loves his father so much that he doesn't want anything to happen to Benjamin. Mm-hmm. We have this in Samuel where we have, 1 Samuel, where we have Jonathan, who is of the tribe of Benjamin, and David, who's of the tribe of Judah. Mm-hmm. And they're working together. And if you remember, Jonathan is the one who saves David's life, whereas here we have Judah saving Benjamin's.
Benjamin's
It's
life.
almost like repaying.
Yes.
Even through the generations, they're going to work together. Actually, we also see Benjamin and Judah's lands are together.
Mm-hmm.
And they share Jerusalem.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like they are eternally connected.
Yeah.
Well, if Benjamin represents that last generation, then wouldn't that be eternally connected with Messiah?
Well, isn't it interesting that Paul is from the line of Benjamin? And he
Yes.
was the last one prophetically to really speak to the northern tribes
Oh my
on
gosh.
behalf of Judah.
That is so good because it makes me think. All right, we see the pattern this week of Benjamin and Judah, right? And they go. Benjamin is the reason why they all go back to see, in order for Messiah or for Joseph to reveal himself.
Oh.
It's going to be Benjamin. But see, Saul.
So isn't so doesn't that make sense? Why the powers that be want to twist Paul's words so much to turn us away from Judah?
Yes,
Instead of driving us to Judah.
And if you remember, the whole thing was he kept saying in the twinkling of an eye, he's coming, he's coming. Absolutely. Had everything gone in order, just like they said, had you believed on Messiah,
Yes.
the kingdom would have come.
Right.
The same thing. That would have been the second half of that generation, Benjamin, drawing everyone back to Messiah. But it couldn't be because it wasn't time.
Right. So it's been hidden.
It had to be twisted.
Hidden and twisted, and now we're unwinding it, untwisting it, and it'll be just like that.
Yes, and wasn't Joseph hidden? And then it hit me about this week too, speaking of the hidden part, was, so when Jacob and Israel, and his family, they came down, they were put in Goshen, right? They were put away from everyone. They
Separated.
They were hidden.
Yeah.
They were hidden among those that were considered an abomination, the shepherds.
Right, yeah.
Well, but where was he from in Manasseh? I'm assuming that they were with their dad. They were with Joseph. They were with the Joseph who was hidden, who looked Egyptian.
Right.
And when Joseph revealed himself to the brothers, Ephraim and Manasseh are not reported to be there. They were born, and they are they're young, but they're going to grow up. Here's the thing. They're going to grow up the next 17 years learning from the father, from Jacob. Right.
Wow, yeah.
And so you've got this 17 years of them learning that, yet they were still living with Joseph. Remember, Joseph didn't live with them in Goshen.
So he just would go back and forth in the world.
Yes.
But learning from Jacob.
Yes.
Israel.
Yes. And so we still have...
So while they're physically not with them in the land, they're out in the world learning from them. Got it.
Yes.
I see it.
Do you
see
see
the pattern?
That? That's exactly where we are today.
I know.
And Ephraim
so
Manasseh.
17 years. No, I'm kidding.
We are in the time of having our eyes opened, right? And revealing who he is, truly who he is. But at the same time, so is Israel. But we're looking at them on two different sides.
Yep.
Ephraim and Manasseh already understood who Jacob was. They're like, well, yeah, he's our dad.
Right.
But the brothers are now going, oh my gosh, you're our brother, but you're also
our redeemer.
Yes. You're both. We don't have to look for a new Messiah. You've got it. But at the same time, the brother's like, yeah, but you can't be with me in this town. You've got to be over there. You've got to stay separate. But my kids aren't having to be separate because the roles are different. But later, those two roles are going to be brought together. Those two sticks are going to be brought together so that then the Joseph idea, right?
That's what this week's Haftorah portion is, Ezekiel 37 with the two sticks.
Exactly.
Coming together.
Yeah.
So we can just keep on talking about this right into mine.
Well, no spoiler alert, so we'll move on. So another point we'll look at this week is the famine itself. So we see in Scripture, or several translations say there was famine in all the world. Well, really, it's all the land. So I say that the Russian area and the area that was in China were not in famine. They didn't go to get food from Egypt ever. Okay?
Right.
So it's all in the land. It's the structure who depend on each other. You see, when there was famine in Egypt, they would go up to the Canaan area. When there was famine in Canaan, they would come down to Egypt.
Okay.
Right. And we know this because Abraham, when there was famine, where'd he go? He just went to Egypt.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. And if you remember this, when Isaac there was famine, he was going to go to Egypt, and the Lord's like, no, you can't go down there.
Right.
Which is probably has something to do with why this time Jacob says, I don't know if I should go, right? Not until the Lord releases them. But we'll save that for another time.
Okay.
Back to the famine. So this tells us there had to be famine in both. All right?
Right.
Because the only way the Lord's going to get Joseph's family, Jacob, them to come down is that there has to be famine in both. Now, this doesn't mean there was no food at all. If you remember, Jacob has his sons bring the balm and almonds and honey and different types of food
It's the wheat?
that they had in their area.
I mean, just the grain?
It's the grains. It's what they were making as it's their staple. The staple wasn't there, but the lanyap, the accessories were.
Yeah.
But not the bread. The bread was missing.
I got it. Yes, the bread was
missing.
missing. Famine of the word. I mean,
yeah,
bread.
Here's what's cool.
That's the pattern.
Joseph is the one who says, I'm going to provide the bread for you.
Yes.
And then I was like, ooh, Psalms, I think it's 39 or 37, that talks about, what he says, that the sons, never has he seen the sons of the righteous begging for bread.
Right.
Why? Of course not, because the Redeemer's providing it.
Yeah.
They're provided the land, they're provided the bread, okay? And while we're on the land part, by having them provide the land, you notice they're given land. They don't buy the land, okay? And they're not farming it for Pharaoh. And when we look in 47, the pattern, I just thought how interesting, because it's actually like opposites. Here's what I mean. When we look at the way we give ourselves to the world and our lustful desires, it starts like this. We want something so bad that we're willing to give of our money for it. When that's gone, think of gamblers. That's what I kept thinking of, was addicted gamblers.
Right, okay.
The money's gone. Now they're what? They're going to their materials. Right? They're going to sell their materials or pawn this and pawn that. Then what happens? Then after they do that, then they're like, oh, take my land. Okay, let me sell my house. The more valuable land that you're getting, you're losing your job. The things that you're getting your source of income from.
Right.
Then the last thing is you just sell yourself. I mean, you literally sell your soul to Satan.
Yeah.
But when we look at it with Messiah, it's completely the opposite. You give your soul.
Yeah.
And then he starts to provide
All
everything
of those
backwards.
things. Wow.
Yes, he gives you he doesn't make you a slave per se, but you do. You become his servant, right? I mean, you become a part of him.
Right.
Then you suddenly start getting those things that help provide for you. And then you start to get the material things, and then you start to get the money, so you can now. But what do you do with that? You not just take care of yourself; you take care of those around you. It's when we start with the heart, the motivation of what we do with the goods is much different than when we start with the goods and then we get down to the heart.
Right. Yeah.
And I saw that this week, and it's just, I think, an overarching pattern of where are we? Are we starting with the heart? Are we starting with the source or the symptoms? And as the world, we deal with the symptoms, and then by the time we get to the source, we're spent.
Yes.
But with the Lord, we deal with the source, and therefore those symptoms are so minor. I mean, they just disappear, and they now become a support to our source. No longer are they a symptom.
Right.
We apologize for the angelic glow that we have. But the sun is setting. We had terrible storms this morning, so we had to wait till later on. And now it's a beautiful, beautiful day, which also made me think of, you got to get through the storm sometime to really enjoy
the beauty of the day.
All right. So I said we were going to hold something for a moment. We're going to go back to it, and now we're going to do that. And that had to do with Jacob when he was praying about going, leaving the land. One of the hesitations, if you remember in Genesis 28, where the Lord says, basically, you're going to go out, I'm going to bring you back in. All right, I'm going to provide for you. And he makes the agreement, and that's when he makes the first vow, okay? And then the Lord brought him back in. He's returned to his father's house. He's back in the land. Now, Jacob is being called by Joseph to leave the land. He loves his son. Yet he's being told to leave the land. It looks and sounds like a good idea, but he made this agreement with the Lord. So what do I do? And that's when the Lord says, yeah, go. I'm going with you. All right. He went with them the first time. He came back into the land. And now he's going with them again. But he makes this comment that he's going to bring him back to the land. Yet Joseph is going to close his eyes, which means you're going to die with Joseph. I'm sure the thought is one of two things. Either one, well, I guess Joseph's going to come on back home with us.
Yeah.
Or two, he understood the idea of resurrection.
Okay.
Now, Abraham had no problem with taking Isaac because he's like, hey, we know this from Hebrews. That's fine. You're just going to raise him from the dead if you kill him. Mm-hmm. Jacob, that's fine. If I die there, I'm just going to be raised from the dead.
And back in the land.
Right, and back in the land. They knew what their forefathers said. When we don't know what our forefathers said, we don't know what the Torah says. We're missing all those things so that when little pieces of information are given to us, we can look back. We can see how it's linking together to make that chain. I so want to encourage everyone to study the Torah. Get that good, strong foundation so that when you turn on the news...
You will be blessed.
Yes,
so
it's
blessed.
life. It's like we had this conversation today running.
Yes.
It's life. It absolutely is. And before we close, I want to ask Julie if she will share really quick something about last week having to do with what she saw from last week's Torah portion. Would you share that?
Oh, about Joseph?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I kind of saw was a flip side of what we usually see. We see Joseph as the Messiah,
right.
Foreshadowing the Messiah, which is true. But we also have the earthly body. So as you begin to go through, let's say, so the brothers come down, but the body is dressed like the world, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got that physical body, but they recognize Israel as a nation. But who does he imprison? Simeon. Simeon's name is hearing.
Right.
That's what his name means, is hearing. And I'm like, of course, because that's what the body is doing right now. They don't want to hear about the Torah and about Israel. Right. They know that they're going to help Israel. He knows that, but it's the hearing that they don't want at that time. And then, like you said, with Benjamin being that last generation.
That's the generation that allows them to hear finally.
Right. And then just the overwhelming compassion that he has for them at the end. And that's kind of where we're at now. You have people who reject Torah but still love Israel.
Right.
Because they don't understand that they need to... Torah and Israel and Messiah all go together.
Right.
But they just don't understand yet. It's not time.
Right.
Yeah.
I
don't know. So I just kind of saw a different side of the coin where you could really see Joseph playing that role of the body right now.
Right. And
looking
if we
like
are the body of Messiah, then it would do both. I mean, he's the head. Yes. And then what's the body doing?
Right.
What's the body doing under that head?
Right.
That's what we've got to do. We've got to behave properly so the head can walk properly, I guess.
But according to Israel, they don't see the body of Messiah.
Yeah.
They don't see us as brothers.
Yeah.
Not yet.
I'm telling you, I think this year is going to be one that's just amazing. I mean, you have Christians and Jews in the land pulling together tighter than ever before because of the UN deal. Okay?
Right.
Because of the resolution, they're coming together and drawing together because they're going to find they really
connection.
have that purpose.
Yeah.
They don't fully understand, but as they start to understand, that purpose is going to become stronger and more defined and clear.
Yeah.
And it's going to be easier to say, I completely take that or I completely reject it. And that's what we need.
Very good.
Anyhow, we are so glad you joined us this week, and we hope to see you next week. And we'll see you on the flip side with Julie and the prophets.
Shalom.